Hi everyone, welcome to today's IG Live about trauma healing together with Henrik, my ex-husband, who is just joining. Hi everyone, welcome. So I'm bringing in Henrik. At least that's what I hope I'm doing. Okay, good.
Hello.
Okay, good. Well, that has worked well. Hi from Los Angeles. Hi from Heidelberg. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining our live on trauma healing. Yeah. So how do we start? I guess for everyone who does not know me or you, we might start with an introduction to clear up the possible question of we having the same surname. We have been married in the past. So we are not anymore, but doesn't matter.
Obviously, we still talk to each other.
Yes, we do. We've been doing all the time, even through separation and divorce. So that's possible for anyone who might have that in front of them.
That actually could be another talk one day.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a good idea. Yeah, because I have clients who have that topic. So, but today we want to talk about trauma and trauma healing. Because we actually both work with clients on trauma healing, which started after separation and divorce. So for anyone who does not know me, I'm Antje Roggemann. I'm a medium and a channel, and I work with clients in healing sessions on trauma healing, releasing emotions, or any kind of like childhood trauma, past life trauma, family trauma. Yeah. And my history is that I've experienced trauma myself, a lot of childhood trauma. I grew up in former Eastern Germany in a dictatorship. Back then, my mother was choleric, aggressive, physically violent, and shouting. Today, she's a very different person. So that's the interesting thing. People can change when trauma is being released. Can be very different. And when we met and got together, my trauma started coming up. And Henrik became my mirror for what I had taken on in my childhood and teenage years and later on. And we had some pretty shocking moments of stuff coming up. And we later, so we both in our relationship and in our marriage experienced each other's trauma because that just came up, and that's what we grew up with, like toxic relationship patterns and all sorts of stuff. We also experienced our own trauma when we lost 6 children through miscarriage. And we did not heal our trauma together. Everyone went with therapists, healers, on their own path. And Henrik also did a lot of training, which actually helped to put us on that path as well. So for me, my healing journey provided a lot of information and training. Also, I have been working with angel symbols since 2006, I think, for myself and for my family, for us. And then started working with clients on that. And that's what I'm doing today. Oh yeah, and I've got this gorgeous energy clearing field that it took a long time for me to love that. But we all know it because it brings up other people's stuff. And that clears actually it's active now as well. So for everyone, you get in clearing when you hear me talking. So yeah, that's being used, or it's active in healing sessions and Reiki attunements and clears clients. So your turn.
There's so much to tell.
I
This
know.
I just
That
noticed
was a very
while you
short
were talking.
version.
I know it's the short version of
That
what
was
we
a
have
very short
experienced.
version.
So the journey was a longer one.
Yeah.
So yes, so I'd rather say what I'm doing today because the journey was so long. So yes, of course, I experienced trauma in my childhood, actually in my very early childhood, which I did never really understand until I started to understand during my own healing trainings that I did some trainings in therapy, trauma therapy. Also, I learned the completion process with the American teacher Teal Swan, which really helped me to process my own trauma, and things kept coming up since then that I had no idea of. So until I don't know, maybe until I was 30 or something, or even later, I had no idea that I had trauma at all. It was just buried in my subconscious mind. I already started on the coaching path and did the first trainings and so on, but I never like really got into the depth of my healing until then sometime. And so I learned a lot about myself, and in the process also learned a lot about what really helps people overcoming trauma, how to deal with it, how to not be afraid, because I experienced a lot of fear in the therapy field,
Yeah.
especially when you talk to trauma therapists, like the
Traditional therapy.
conventional
Yeah.
ones that do official trainings. They are not all of them, I want to say that, but a lot of them are really scared and they don't want to touch trauma. It's their biggest fear that trauma comes up with a client in their sessions. So that's not so super helpful. And that is what I learned over time. And I used alternative methods and maybe unconventional methods. Also worked with plant medicines. I went to Peru to work with a shaman. So a lot of things that really helped me on this path to be where I am now. And what I have never thought, because I experienced or witnessed Antje's path into the mediumship. And for me, that always was a bit, okay, she's doing this. It's a bit weird, to be honest. I didn't understand that for a long time. Nowadays, I'm noticing, there comes something up. I have these ideas. I don't know. They are not mine. They are really helpful. I have this wisdom sometimes that's not mine, and it works in the sessions. So it's super helpful to not just do this from the mind, but also using some, well, I would call it intuition to be a bit careful, but it's definitely something more than just reading a book, having a training, repeating exercises, tell someone what you have told everyone. Because every trauma is so different. Every path is so individual that you really have to, go deep into the journey with someone to really find out what was going on and what's helping and what the good thing is that is going to come out of it.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the important thing. It's interesting because we talked about that before, the fear thing in therapy. Because for me, trauma is not associated with fear at all. It's for me, it's it's something that has happened at some point in time where some event or emotion could not be processed and there was no help to process it. And that can be either in this life, for me also in past lives, because I also see past life trauma and traumas in family lines. Yeah, so that's basically it. And for like, if we're talking about a baby, it could be just having the baby being crying and being left alone, and that creates trauma. So we're not talking about a huge accident or abuse or someone being hit like I was as a child. That doesn't have to be the case. Can be, yes, but it doesn't have to be. And yeah, from my perspective, from past lives, it's usually way more violent than what we know from this life. So
Yeah, exactly.
in past lives, there was a lot more violence that's coming up. And in my experience, anyone who becomes a healer has past life trauma coming up from being persecuted. So that's one thing that I always have when I have clients who become healers themselves as well. But usually, even that, I've got tons of these memories too. Now that this has been released, and for me, a lot of body therapy was helpful, and osteopathy in particular, to release all this from my body memory, muscle memory, and nervous system memory. And since that has been released, for me, it's not scary to work with clients on upcoming trauma and release it. Like, my energy field does that the minute it comes up, or we talk about, and the angel symbols too. And there is always, always, always learning
Yeah.
involved. Trauma that's something I've learned. There's always learning involved in trauma. There's always a message all the time.
Absolutely. And I must excuse for the towel. It's super hot here where I'm.
Yeah,
So
okay. This is
I need to help myself a little bit. Yes,
That's okay.
I absolutely agree with what you were saying. The past life trauma is a thing. Also, that we didn't mention is ancestral trauma.
Yeah.
So what our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, what they experienced, and especially us being German, the war is a big thing.
Yeah.
So I noticed that just recently in a family constellation with Aurélie, who was watching. Hi, Aurélie. So good that
Oh,
you
I
are
already.
joining. So she does family constellations in an amazing way. So my grandmother showed up, and I learned a lot about also the parental family line with the masculine role models that were there, or rather weren't there, because they were in the war and the experiences. So there's a lot going on, and we inherit this. This is in our DNA, and
Yeah.
it's our generation that is clearing this
Yeah.
for the family.
No.
And it obviously couldn't be done before.
No.
So now it's our turn to do it.
Yes.
And it's not always a nice job. It can be challenging at times,
Yeah.
but still we are doing it. And I think it's almost that we have no choice. We are here to do it.
I always say we are here to do it. We've signed up to do this because
Yes.
we have the abilities and the tools today.
So this is why we came. So it's kind of our
Yeah.
purpose, but at the same time, yes, it's challenging. It's not nice, and it's not what people
It's not a
they
walk
like
in the
to say.
park.
Yes, or love and light, you know.
No, not necessarily.
So yeah, it can be dirty and painful, but then it gets lighter every time. That's my experience, and also I think my clients would share this. That is really, it's getting better over time.
Yeah.
That it's easier every time to go into the trauma, and it's like layers. You go into something, then that's healed or it's released, but you find other aspects or other parts of the story depending on the way you work, and our ways to work with this are a bit different.
Yeah.
The experience can be a bit different. So what I do is I do inner child work combined with hypnotherapy. So we go into most of the time it's about this life, not past lives in my work. So we go into that, and I guide my clients to go deeper and deeper, so they finally see the child, they meet the child that has the hurt, and we help it. And we help the child to cope with the situation in a healthy way. It's not that you can make it unhappen. It's always part of the story. It's always part of life. But you can change the way how the child deals with it, and this will have a great impact on the life of the adult today. So it's really, how do you say? It's noticeable, the
Well,
difference.
you basically do change the past, not the,
Right,
yeah,
in
you
a
do.
way.
And that's
Yes.
why also you change the now, because that's the energetic, you change the energy of the whole situation. I always say, I don't like comparing, but I always say normal therapy is like talking. It's just stirring a soup. And what I do is I'm taking out the old parts of the soup and putting in new parts. And that's why everything changes.
And also, I think it's important. I'm not sure if you see it the same way in your work. For me, it's important that I guide the client to change the ingredients themselves. So it's they having the power and losing the powerlessness that was experienced with the trauma. It's something that they can experience as being in charge again of their own lives. And I think that's really useful to experience.
Yeah, it's a bit different in my work because whatever comes up for them, that can often be a mixture of childhood trauma, adulthood trauma, past life trauma, all sorts of stuff. I just know what it is when I read it. And I work with the angel symbols who then help releasing the trauma, but also bring in their energy to create change. And I work with channeled messages from the angels who then guide the client what they need to do. And that is very different. That can be inner child work. That can also be doing things to process their stuff, even though sometimes when they're lucky, it all releases while we are talking in a session. I've had that too. I like to give them tasks, like the angels like to give them tasks or ability, like tools to release their own stuff so that they don't feel stuck. To move out the energy of stuck emotions. So like writing morning pages and just burning the stuff so that the energy gets released. And I've had a client who I gave that task, and after the session, she texted me, it was all gone after the session. And I'm like, okay, you were lucky. My energy field all cleared it out.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
That happens, yes. Yeah, so it's a bit different for me. We don't go necessarily deep because when I'm talking with someone, everything that's needed to come up right now and be cleared out comes up. I always tell them to talk when something comes up because then it's being released in the moment. And then it's layer by layer. I have that too. So if someone comes with the expectation of one session is enough, I've had that in the past. I always explain that's not how it goes. I always explain that we are being born And that's us and with our topics. But at conception, we also take on already the stuff of the ancestors. As you said, we bring our own past life stuff. Then we get all the stuff from our childhood, from our parents and from society. And at the end, we are like this. When clients come to me and to you as well, we are like this. And what I do then is we are removing all the stuff up that someone has collected over time, clearing all of that out. And the more is being released layer by layer by layer, the more someone becomes themselves. And also the better the connection gets to the guidance, to angels, archangels, ascended masters. That's something that I've experienced very profoundly in certain situations when I came from a treatment and something had been moved out. I suddenly felt a much clearer connection, like as if a buffer or bumper had been moved out. And that's something that happens as well, the more is being released.
What you also what you mentioned, when we remove these layers, I think what also then gets clearer is purpose.
Yes.
That's something we talked about recently.
Yes.
That I would, and this might be triggering when you hear it the first time, but today I would say that my life, with all the trauma that I experienced, prepared me perfectly for the purpose that I'm here for to fulfill. And that is to help people with trauma, obviously, not only to release the trauma of my family line and ancestors, that also, but also I'm here to do this kind of work and to help others doing it. And I couldn't have wished for better training than the life that I had.
Yeah, I say the same.
And it needs some healthy distance, I would say, to be able to say this about your own life. But nowadays I feel like this is the truth that I'm experiencing.
Yeah, it may take a decade or two. Or even 2.5.
But at the same time, I don't want to discourage people that are on the path, because maybe that is just a belief, that it may take a decade. It may take a decade or two.
Well, for me,
it did. Yes.
I don't say that for anyone, because I don't know that, but I can tell about myself that like right now I've been sharing that I'm contemplating or being guided to move back to my hometown, because suddenly the relationship with my parents is possible again. And I left 27 years ago when that was very toxic. And now it's different. So it's also something to be encouraged about, because trauma healing does create change for yourself as well as in relationships in your life. So this is something I wished for a long time, but never thought possible, because you've experienced the whole thing with me. So I never thought that all of this would ever release. And the past 5 years have been really instrumental in that. And not just that, because I've just learned that the changing of circumstances can also bring healing to people. When I listened to my mother sharing about how different the city is where she lives now and how enthusiastic she is about, and when I look back, how that was in my childhood. I grew up in a dictatorship, and there was a lot of decisions being made from the outside about people's lives, including my parents' lives. We were not free. That change in circumstances has changed them, has created healing. And that's interesting. That's new. I just learned that in the past 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's also very healing to change your life in a way that you can make new experiences, right? Like moving to another city or even to another country, like in my case,
It's like a hobby for me now.
or
Or
traveling.
for us. I mean, we've done that so often.
Yes. So that can just bring new energies, and it can teach you something so that you can eventually come back to the same place that you left some years ago,
It's not the same place. Yeah.
and it's not the same place. Yes.
Yeah, and that's what I'm feeling. I haven't been there yet. I will be in June, but it's from what I've been hearing, it's not the same place, and that alone for me feels like it could be healing for me too. Just to again release the memories that I have from childhood still. Yeah.
Yeah.
If any one of you has questions, you can just type them in the comments.
Hi, Mihai. Good to see you there.
Thank you,
Earthbound.
everyone, for joining. We are talking about trauma and trauma healing. Anything else? Where did we go?
Well, going back to places.
Yeah.
An interesting thing I can just mention, because I'm going back to Hamburg in July for a while. And this morning when I woke up, my grandma popped up. The grandma that used to live in Hamburg
Yeah.
while she was still alive. And it was so interesting because I felt like, okay, maybe I will meet her there in a way. And also it's kind of inviting me to go to places where she lived, for example, or where my grandparents lived, because I basically was a child when I knew them. And nowadays I would actually like to ask them some more questions about the past of the family and also their experience during the wartime. And I know some things, and what I know about my grandma is that she has really experienced trauma during the war, that she carried all of her life and never talked about it
Yeah.
until shortly before she died. And then she told my mother a few things, and she told me, and that is really intense, knowing that she was probably not the only woman or person living during the time having trauma, not ever talking about it. But still she carried it, and she passed it on to my parents, to my mom in this case, and then I was the next one to inherit it. And so it's still in my bones, if you will, or in my DNA, and I'm removing those patterns. But for me it's super helpful that I know more about it. Like I'm learning from her right now. She's telling me. I meet my grandparents also in family constellations, and now, I'm feeling that I have the capability to move this energy of trauma through my body and release it finally. So this is really interesting to get in touch with the ancestors, which I didn't do so much in the past years. It's coming more recently, actually, again, that I'm getting in touch with my grandparents, and who knows what will come.
Yeah. Well,
And they are not only, that's what I want to add, they're not only giving me the trauma information, they're also giving me their strength.
yeah.
And this is really great. So I had a grandma that really, she raised 3 children on her own after the war, because my grandpa wasn't there. And what I got from her is, and I just understood this, a lot of energy, a lot of strength, a lot of willpower actually to go through something, because she wouldn't give up. She was like, when she had something on her mind, she would really go for that. And even if we probably don't share so much the same values, I wouldn't want the things that she wanted, but still that's an enormous source of energy, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. It often requires releasing the trauma to connect with that, actually. Yeah, but I always say, if you have ancestors on the other side, you can work with them. They are usually like right next to you all the time. And when you think of them, they usually have sent the thought. That's from my perspective as a medium. My grandfather has always been at my side since he passed. My grandmother is here too. And our children also show up. And that was something that I wanted to mention too, because you said the trauma prepared you to be a healer, and I see it the same way. I also learned that when I had the miscarriages, I wasn't actually meant to have children. I was meant to be born as a medium. And that's how I see that today. It's also how I've been told from the angels, that was actually me being born through them, through the miscarriages, through losing them, which I never did. I always was in connection with them, and that was the becoming a medium part. They literally made me a medium, and that was meant to be. But it also created trauma during that time, and I had to process and release that later on. A lot of grief, that to actually see it that way, and to be able to accept it that way, and to also release the need to actually have own children. It took like 2 decades. Yeah, so that's been not the easiest thing, I think, for both of us. Yeah. Yeah. So the experiences we go through teach us and give us wisdom and experience. All the stuff that I recognize when I talk with someone today, because I'm feeling energy. So for me, like every experience, every word, everything is energy. Past life is an energy. I know this because I've been through it, and by being through it, I've learned the energies, how they feel, and now I recognize this, and use the experience with clients. Yeah, and
I can add that having the children, not being born, but still having them in a way, I would say that made me a father.
Yeah, well, it was.
And
Yeah.
I noticed that in my sessions when I work with people, it's oftentimes the fatherly energy that I letting through me to reparent other people's inner children. So when people ask me today, how do I know so much about children, and also quite practical because we read books, right?
Yeah, we did a lot of research and learning.
I'm one of the guys that can talk to a woman about giving home birth and telling all these modern parenting things. I know them because we informed about ourselves about them.
Yeah.
And then also I worked with a lot of children, inner children, and that also helps with the outer children. So oftentimes I talk also with clients that have children about education and how to be a good parent and how to talk to children, how to make them do something or not. So that's really, helpful.
Yeah.
Even though the experience was painful in the beginning, and has been for a long time, I must admit that. Yes.
Yeah. For me, it was. I had at some point I had to realize that I am a mother, even though I don't have children physically present with me, and I had to find a way to make that known, because the pure fact that they are not physically visible made me feel like part of me is missing. And that was when I learned that I needed to start talking about them to make that real. And that was actually the start of healing from this. And it still took a long time. But I also have clients with children, and I also find myself in conversations about, I just had that again, free birth, natural birth, sometimes unschooling, free schooling. Not everyone has the opportunity, but because I work with clients worldwide, there are people who have the opportunity. So I have these conversations too. And I also do healing sessions for children and support them with children angel symbols, for instance. Or I also do healing sessions for to clear up anything from the pregnancy. That can be done for children and for adults.
That's beautiful.
And it also, the beauty in it is that I pull an angel symbol for each month of the pregnancy. And it shows not only the topics that someone brings with them and helps to release anything that's blocking. It also shows the abilities and the sensitivities and the needs. And that's super fascinating and helps parents to understand their children in a different way and connect in a different way. And it's always beautiful to see the relationship change after doing this.
And then you did something, I'm not sure if you're still doing it, but I really liked that you were doing those guardian angel channelings for children. Or even wasn't it even before they were born or something?
I also did a few guardian angel channelings for unborn children a few years back. And I just found the feedback. And the interesting thing is that I know one of them has been, at the time I did it, they did IVF. So she was literally pregnant with an embryo, must have been miscarried later because now they have twin girls. So she came back with another one. And I find that interesting. So I do, I've just again offered guardian angel channelings for adults, for children, as well as, well, I didn't particularly offer them for unborn children, but I did that in the past. And that also leads to children like connecting to their guardian angels and also adults connecting to their guardian angels, which is something I really love. In general, I like to give people the tools that I didn't have as a child and also as an adult when I had all my abilities come up. Because, like, you know it, you've experienced it. There was no one else who was like me. So the only, I just wanted to say people. I only had angels, archangels, and ascended masters to teach me, and books from abroad, like translated. But there was no other person. And today I like to be the person who helps others who have abilities come up, so that they are not alone and not scared, and also teach people about angels, archangels, ascended masters, and their children too, because they are there to help, and it makes everyone feel not alone and access help that I didn't know as a child or even as an adult for a long time.
Yeah, and I think that's so important that we show ourselves, and I had to force myself or to push myself a little bit to do this more and tell my story more and show up more, just because I think it's so important that people know that they are not alone. They are not alone in their experience. There are other people having similar experiences, not the same, but maybe similar. And also they're not alone in the healing. They can get help. And there are other people that went through this before and can guide them nowadays. And I think this is also changing, that there are more people that are on the path and they can help. They can take someone by the hand and guide them on a little bit until they themselves become teachers or healers, because I think there are so many more of us. So I think it's really important that we help each other on this path and help each other also through what we would call awakening. And Yeah, I think that's important. Another thing that I want to mention, because I don't know who might be listening later, is that when you are parents and you resolve your trauma, that's actually the best thing you can do for your children
Mm-hmm.
if you don't want to pass it on. A lot of people might have heard this before, but I cannot stress this enough, that the parents that get on the way, that do self-reflect, that do the healing path, that's just the most yeah, that's the way to show love to your child in the best way, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's better than presents for Christmas.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But as you're mentioning that, we also talked about that I've come to the hi Henriette, that I've come to the conclusion that you can't avoid trauma. You can't prevent your children to have a trauma moment or trauma experience, because I've been asked from parents, how do I prevent my child, or can I prevent my child from experiencing the same as I did? Well, release your trauma. But to not experience trauma, that's not even your job, because you don't know what your child came here to experience.
Mm-hmm.
Always remember that first, they are also a soul or a being that has lived thousands of lifetimes. So just because they are in a baby body or in a child body doesn't mean they are little or unexperienced. That's one thing. The other thing is everyone comes with a life purpose, a life path, a plan to experience, to make experiences and to grow. So I see the task of parents as being a guide and a guardian, and accompanying their children, but not living their life or taking away challenges or trying to prevent problems or trauma or something. Because you as a parent, you don't know what they are here for to learn. That's why I always say work with their guardian angels, work with your guardian angels. Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for joining. Work with guardian angels, work with angels. They can guide you because they know the life plan.
Mm.
But it's not the task of parents to prevent experiences for their children.
Also, from my perspective, when I tune into those parents that are potentially afraid of their children having trauma or experiencing trauma, it might be that they are afraid of trauma themselves, basically.
Yeah.
So when they release their trauma and they learn the processes and the tools to do
Yeah.
this, they will also lose the fear of trauma, and that will be helpful because they can then pass on the tools
Yeah.
to their children,
Yeah.
so they can heal much faster and they don't have to carry this, whatever they experience, for their whole life.
Yeah.
Because I think we are in a time also where healing can happen much faster, especially when you have conscious parents.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Just wanted to add that.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Well, the child, I always say the children come as the teacher. So they also are providing the trigger for the trauma of the parent. So that's what you said before. The best thing you can do for your children is to heal your own trauma. Also, being aware during your day life when something is being triggered in you through your child. So not reacting to whatever comes up because of your child. Instead, asking yourself, where does this come from? Because it's not the child that's the problem, it's your own trauma that's coming up from the past. And the more you do that, the less you have those trigger moments.
Yeah. And those trigger moments also could be, of course, they are because of your own trauma, but then, it's oftentimes it's not the child being the the trigger, but oftentimes it's also the partner. So when there are relationship problems or partnership conflicts, it happens that the child suffers because the parents are maybe rude or like don't have the nerve to listen or to take the time to deal with the child. And again, then that's helpful to work with the triggers, work around the trauma, to heal the partnership, but also to heal the life path potential of the child.
Yeah. And because you're saying that about partnership, what we learned as well, or what we experienced as well, is one thing I always say is don't try to do it alone. Get help from outside. You can't see or hear your own trauma on your own. Don't try to do it with your partner. Everyone does it for themselves. That's the best thing, because if you do, and you already start healing the relationship by, hi Kate, you already start healing the relationship by releasing your own trauma, and stopping to focus on your partner being the problem.
Exactly.
Because your partner is also only a trigger.
Yes. So you do it with someone else outside the partnership. You do it together in a partnership because both of you are growing.
Yeah.
But you need someone outside the relationship that you do the work with, because you don't want to be the therapist of your partner. You don't want to be the teacher of your partner. You don't want to be the parent of your partner.
We've all been through this.
Yes. So that's really helpful when you find someone outside of the partnership. It really will also get a lot of burden, a lot of stress from out of the partnership, so you can really be more yourselves. And even if something comes up and both of you are conscious of it, you can see it with more humor and deal with it in the appropriate moment with the help that you need for this.
Yeah.
Hi Bianca. Good to see you.
That's also something that I'm experiencing in general. Like, the more trauma is being released, the more centered I am, and the less I'm being fazed by what's happening around me, even if people act out or show behaviors that I know from my childhood, for instance. I can handle it in a very different way today than maybe 10 or 20 years ago. It does not prevent other people from being like that, because I always explain that everyone is on a different timeline in their learning and growth. So I've started this journey like 27 years ago, and others are starting it now, or have started it 2 years ago because of this pandemic thing. That kicked so many people into awakening.
Right.
So everyone is on a different point of their path. And I can still encounter people with behaviors that are toxic, that I know from my past, even though I don't have that anymore, and I'm able to handle it very differently.
And at the same time, I notice it doesn't happen that often. It's like you clear this resonance from your field by healing the trauma around it, so you don't attract those people so much into your life anymore. Of course, it can happen that you run into someone on the train station or something, but it doesn't happen that often anymore. This is what I observe.
Yeah, me too. I'm just like the last ones are leaving my life right now with that behavior.
And this is, a lot of people refer to Earth as a learning planet, a teaching planet. And
it's cool.
Yes. So what I noticed is, okay, one topic goes, I don't have the resonance anymore, but another thing comes. It comes in layers, and someone told me just that we are moving in spirals, and
Yes.
ideally it's upwards, but
Yeah.
it's still spirals,
It
and
can
you
be like
can,
this.
look, so you can experience similar things in a different way. So
Yeah.
it's really, it stays interesting. Also, no one should expect to be bored after
Oh no.
releasing trauma. There's always something new to learn, but at some point it starts being more fun.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you start then to be in resonance with different people. That's what I'm experiencing right now. So I've had just experienced like 4 people leaving my life within the last 2 weeks. One more today that was very unexpected, but also like suddenly new coming in. So it can be a bit of a turmoil for a time if things release. But any release always makes space for something new to come in. So any old stuff you clear out is always making space for new experiences, new people, new places,
Mhm.
new everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyone having questions? If not, you can also contact each one of us afterwards.
Yes, we will still be here for questions or whatever comes up.
I also share the live, so anyone who has come later can watch it afterwards. Yeah.
And I think we're coming towards the end because you said there would be an alarm around
I don't
a few
know.
minutes.
I don't see a, a time until it comes up. So if you
Okay,
have a clock, then
it's almost an hour already.
okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
We shouldn't be doing much longer than an hour, I guess. Anything else that needs to be mentioned? No, no.
actually, I think we're good for now. At least I feel like
I just have Metatron
it's been
popping
said.
up.
Okay.
So Archangel Metatron is the archangel of life purpose and life path. Who made us do this? So if you, I'm sure I have 100 questions, but my mind is absolutely blanking, Henriette. Okay. You know where to find me. So you can write down your 100 questions and send them afterwards.
I would be interested in that list.
Yeah, me too,
Good.
because maybe we could do another one answering questions. Yeah.
Sure.
So if anyone has questions, you can send them afterwards as well. And if you you might need time to write down 100 questions, so you can do it with Archangel Metatron. But that's an archangel you can connect to every day to ask to be guided to your life purpose. And I have the experience that a lot of the clients I work with are actually either already working in the healing field or becoming healers. I might often see that earlier than they do, but it often happens. Yeah. So, and if anyone has questions, you can also send them to me later, Henriette. Just write an email or a message. Yeah. And yeah, that was Metatron wanted to be mentioned. It just showed up. So
Okay, just mentioning.
obviously, yeah, because Metatron is the archangel of life purpose and life path. Or actually, Metatron is also the archangel who usually brings my clients. So, so if anyone is yeah coming to me, or if whoever is watching this now or later is resonating with us and with the topic. So ask yourself whether whether it's maybe time in your own life to release trauma and work with one of us. Because there's a reason that you've been watching this. It's called synchronicity, it's called guidance. So your guardian angels and also Metatron is guiding you, even if you're not asking and are not aware yet. So trust that. Okay.
Good.
Then I would say, and now I have my pop-up reminder. So I would say that we end for today. And thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for doing this with me and jumping on the occasion.
Thank you very much for organizing this and inviting me.
And yeah, whoever wants to work with any of us, you can just contact us. I'm going to share this live so you can watch it again and also see where to find us. Okay.
It was a
Then,
pleasure.
Thank you again. And see you and see everyone soon. Bye.